Welcome to Different Roots Radio, where we discuss topics around lifestyle, business, and social issues. Today, we are joined by Rishi Kapoor, founder of PausTV, a new streaming platform that has been called the Netflix of independent films. We discuss with Rishi his motivations for starting PausTV, the steps and research behind starting PausTV, the independent film industry, and the algorithms of streaming sites. We hope you enjoy the episode. Lights, camera, action.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for another episode of Different Roots Radio. We're very fortunate to have another wonderful guest with us, Rishi Kapoor. Rishi is another alumni from Alliance Manchester Business School. He's worked in the film and entertainment industry since 2005, ranging from different companies such as Sony Pictures, Warner Brothers, and BBC and NBC. And recently, Rishi has recently started PausTV, which is the new Netflix of independent films. So that's just started this last year, and he's currently crowd surfing. So if you want to invest in a good company, this would be the one to get in if you want to get in on Netflix when it was starting up. So thank you, Rishi, for coming in for us today.
No, thank you. Thank you guys so much.
So Rishi, first of all, we got to understand, what was your motivation to even start off PausTV? How did you come to think this is the realm that I need to get started into?
So, as you mentioned, I've worked in that studio space for a long time. I started off at Sony, went over to Universal. I was at Warner Brothers. I did some work with Disney. I did a lot of work with the BBC, and all within that digital streaming space. And they relied on a couple of traditional business models, whether it be set subscriptions, monthly or annual, or set payments or adverts. And those models worked really well when you're working on a big commercial project, like, I'd work on Fast and Furious or Jurassic Park, or, a big movie franchise like Harry Potter. And those kind of models worked super well when you've got huge audiences. But what I noticed in the industry, and it's a trend that many have observed, is that the industry is focusing much more on those big hit franchises and blockbusters, whilst independent and original content declines year on year. And we've already seen with big streamers like Netflix and Amazon, they're more focusing on their original content, so Netflix originals. And that's where the money is being spent, and less is being spent on independent production. And as a result, diverse storytelling just starts to fade out as more money is spent on repetitive, safe bets in big commercial productions. And look, it's not just a thought. Look at the stats. The independent film sector declined by 45% last year alone. But that's not because of lack of demand. Almost 70% of today's streamers are looking for a new offering that focuses on differentiated and niche content. So the demand is there, but the economics are simply broken. So I looked at this and I thought, well, we need a more democratic system that empowers independent films and reverses that decline and provides better economics for content that has smaller audiences. And then I was like, well, hey, look, I've come from this space for the last 8 to 10 years. I'm in a good position to maybe solve that problem. And that's how it all got started.
And how did you actually how did you get started yourself? How did you get into it?
So how did you get into film, or
what were the actual steps you took to start up start PausTV?
Did you meet with people, or did you talk, did you have a team, or
So I took a really academic approach to this, which is, does my idea solve an acute problem in the industry? And I totally believe in problem-led innovation as opposed to innovating because it might be cool and it might create some scale. And so, I started off heavy in research. I think in the end, I did about 263 different surveys and interviews with people, both audiences and content creators, to figure out what the problem was with existing platforms and would the economics work. And actually, it wasn't originally a a digital tipping model as it is today. It was something slightly different. It was based on mini subscriptions, almost like the Patreon model. And I had the benefit within that time of doing research to see other platforms become really successful, like Patreon, who transacted $500 million from fans to content creators. Platforms like Himalaya, who allow tipping for podcasters. Platforms like Portal, who raised $2 million in the US just based on microtipping. Twitch, who has a microtipping element. And then all the rise of platforms in China like WeSing and QQ Music, who are transacting close to $57 million a month just based on this peer-led tipping. So whilst I was doing my own research, I saw this trend emerge elsewhere, and I thought now is the time to actually take this model that has been so successful in other parts of the industry and spearhead this movement within independent film.
So if I'm getting this correctly, it's people will be able to enjoy independent films, and then at the end of that particular film, they can then have the option to tip the production team or the producer for an amount. So it still allows a lot of those guys that enjoy film to watch as many films as possible, and then if they feel really moved by what they saw, which happens in most of those small films, then I can definitely see that working out for both user and content creator.
And I feel like for independent films, if they're really good, people talk about them more. Like me and my friends, we watch a lot of films, and in the WhatsApp, I'm like, "Oh, have you seen this new Korean film?" And they're like, "It's really good." And then you go on the review, and then everyone be like, "This is an amazing film. This is so good." So I think if you see a good film in the cinema, like we went to see Tenet, it was okay. It was confusing, but it was a standard Hollywood blockbuster. Loads of action. It was a good storyline. It was a bit different, but it was just a good film. But when you see an independent film that's really good and different and makes you think, you tell your friends, right, you have to watch this film. They've never heard of it, and then you kind of feel a bit in the know, and you want to review and let people know. So it makes sense that people would want to tip the creator of it, because you want to show your appreciation.
So independent films are notoriously very tribal, right? Independent films end up creating these small clusters of super fans and tribes. And the problem is there's no model that really rewards smaller audiences who are really engaged. There's no real model that rewards loads of passion. There's models out there that reward passive views. So you can go on something like YouTube or Facebook and rack up hundreds and thousands of views or millions of views, and you can earn, a few £100 from it. But there's no real model that rewards passion and valued hours as opposed to viewed hours. And we're trying to change those metrics slightly. And as you say, you watch an independent film and there's so much excitement around some of them. We screened a film just a couple of weeks ago, and the kid was 17 years old, and it was his first film. And he spent about £30 making this film in his room, using his brother as an actor. He put it on pause. First night, £600 in tips. And he's 17 years old, and he's made his money back on the film and then some. And those kind of economics and that return on your investment for a film, it doesn't happen in the independent film sector. Independent films very rarely make their money back. We've time and time again made money back from independent films, plus more, within a very short space of time. And that's because independent films, each one of them has a core fan base out there. That fan base is just smaller than Tenet or Jurassic Park. And we need to create models that empower smaller fan bases.
This 17-year-old person that made a nice film, made the money back, those are the kind of people that don't readily make it to film festivals such as Cannes, TIFF, or Sundance, right? So are you trying to get those that are on the way to those platforms, or do you find people that make those platforms, make it to those film festivals and then get onto Paus? Like, what kind of range of content creators do you engage with, or what kind of films can we find on there?
So we do take films directly from film festivals. So we have partnerships with companies like the Rain Dance Film Festival and the International Animation Festival and Adventure Uncovered and the British Urban Film Festival. And we're hopefully working with the Dumbo Film Festival over in New York and the International Filmmaker Project and blah, 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 a number of film institutions. And if you think about what those film festivals do, they get thousands and thousands of submissions of short films and feature films to their festival. They then watch all of them and they pick out the best 100, 200 films. And they screen it in a private cinema in London for 1 or 2 days. And then the festival is over, and then those films kind of just disappear into the ether. They either end up on YouTube or Vimeo or Facebook on their private website or nowhere. And what we do is go to those film festivals and say, hey, you know those 200 films that you screened? Give those 200 films to us, or the 99% of people who couldn't make it down to the cinema room and watch it.
Yeah.
Give us that selection, because curation is really important. And what we've seen in film is algorithmic curation just doesn't work. And that's why people spend such a long time scrolling through Netflix and Amazon trying to find something to watch, because data and algorithms do not surface up the right quality of recommendations. It's the opposite of music. Music does that really well. You can go into Spotify and listen to something straight away and guarantee you'll enjoy it for like an hour, because algorithms and music work really well. Because if it suggests classical music to you and you like classical music, there's very little you can go wrong. Whereas if you like action films and Netflix gives you 10 action films, you might hate all 10 of them. So algorithms are very difficult to crack in the film sector.
Why do you think that is, though? Because I mean, I do like, actually, you put James Bond, I'm gonna like it, and you put Jason Bourne, I'm gonna like it. But then, as you say, there are 10 which I won't like, which I put in front, and I just spend all day on Netflix. Like, why have I watched everything or don't want to watch it? So why do you think it's so hard for films to work for the algorithm? Because actually, action and horror is horror. As long as it's actually scary, it should be what I'm looking for. But there's so many different horror films, it doesn't really work.
I think there's so many variations in a film that makes someone connect to it. It's the story, it's the number of actors involved, it's the way the story flows, and there's a ton of variables within a film, more so probably than I mean, I'm kind of guessing here. I'm not quite sure why algorithms don't work as well in film as it does with music, but I think people are less sensitive to the variations in music, because if you like rock or you like classical music, you're less concerned about the variables because you enjoy those variables. With film, it's much more of an immersive experience, because you are sitting down and you're viewing something that's both audio and visual, and you're committing your time to it. You can't watch a film and drive. You can listen to music and drive. And so I think there's too many variations for us as consumers to be confined to an algorithm. And human curation and the ability for an institution or a person to put a stake in the ground and say, this is what I think is cool, is really important in film. And we do that on a mass scale. So we work with film festivals and they pick out the films for us. So all the films on our service are handpicked by experts. So audiences know they're getting quality content. And you know, they get to watch it for free. And what we're trying to do is, if you recall when you'd go into Blockbusters, you're both old enough to remember Blockbusters.
Oh, yeah.
And you'd go in, and if you want to watch a horror, you'd look at the shelf, but the first thing you'd do is kind of make your way over to the counter, and you say to the person behind the counter, hey, what's a good horror film?
Yeah, exactly.
And they would say, hey, look, I watched this horror film last week and it's wicked. And so you'd go with that one.
Yeah,
and that human element is gone. Right, that human element is gone from digital streaming, and we're bringing it back. But rather than saying this is what Paus thinks is cool, we're looking at the experts like the Raindance Film Festival, who are the largest and longest-standing independent film festival in Europe, to tell us what is cool and what's good to watch.
Good. So a kind of Blockbuster feel recommendations for independent films. That's what Paus would allow. So I think that's pretty cool. And actually going back a little bit to the whole algorithm configuration, I was thinking about it is like, as we watch things on Netflix or on Amazon Prime, we watch it, but a lot of people don't actually give it a thumbs up, a thumbs down, like, oh, okay, that was crap, and then move on. So it doesn't log into the system that this person enjoyed this film kind of thing. But however, when it comes to songs, we can always like it and add to your library.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't exist in Netflix or in Amazon Prime. You don't have a favorites.
On Amazon Prime, there's
yeah.
only like like on each video.
Yeah.
There's like 1 or 2 reviews on each video, and I'm like, it's Amazon Prime. There's thousands and thousands of people watching this movie, and one person's been like, this film is not very good, and I'm like, no one can be bothered to leave it. It's really weird. Yeah, that's a good point.
So maybe, I don't know, for PausTV, you guys might be able to allow your users to create some sort of library of their own personal favorites, and then that way that kind of inputs data into your systems, like this is the kind of profile this person likes of films, and then that can feed into the recommendations.
Actually, it's interesting you say that. We've just signed a deal with a new technology provider. One of the new functionality that's coming out is people able to add things to what we're calling a watch list. So not only can people download to watch offline, but people can actually add films to a watch list if they want to watch that thing again, or they browse through, they see 10 films that they like, and they can add them to a watch list to watch at any point. Yeah. And that will help us figure out what people are saving, what people are watching, how often they're watching it, and use that in some way to drive some form of curation. But what we want to do is stay away from manipulating data too much to drive a recommendation, and allowing people to discover based on human curation.
That's good. Well, make sure don't create too much of a profile based on me, because my watch list on Netflix, it's just like films I hope to watch one day, because there's so much of Netflix, but I never get to them. So it's not really my favorite yet, but I'm like, one day I'll get to it.
I've got on my list is The Social Dilemma, and it's been on my list for like a month. And I'm gonna watch this.
Have you not watched it yet?
This is what everyone keeps telling me, and I'm like, I will watch it today, and I guarantee you by next week I still would have watched it. I don't know why.
You know what? I'm gonna put in a cheap plug here, because we have a manifesto at Paus about being democratic and fair, and not selling people's personal data to third-party or brands, because we don't have adverts, and that people shouldn't be confined to algorithms, and content doesn't need to be brand sensitive. So, you know, if you're a content creator, you want to put stuff on YouTube, you have to kind of be cautious of what Adidas or Nike or any other brand wants to see, because they're going to put their advert in front of it so you can earn money. If you remove the need for adverts, you can start making content that's riskier, because you don't really care if an advertiser likes it or not. And what we want to do is reward that brave storytelling. And I thought, hey, that's a really strong manifesto, and that's a really strong thing for our culture. And our culture shouldn't be defined by an algorithm. Culture shouldn't be confined to big brands or adverts. And then I watched The Social Dilemma, and I was like, oh my God, this is like an actual thing. So please watch it, because if anyone's on the fence about what we're doing at Paus, watch that, and then you'll convert for sure.
So true.
Gotta definitely watch it now again.
And then when it comes to the film industry or film market, maybe not a lot of people notice, but the biggest film market in the entire world is China, then India, and then US. So like the international film market is huge. So with PausTV, will you be able to adhere to those kind of markets, like those people that live in China, and you know they'll want to watch Chinese films or independent films? Do you have a way of adhering to that market, or is it going to be mostly European films?
Well, we're expanding in Europe and the US first. So we launched our US version 2 months ago, so people can tip in dollars. China, of course, is the biggest market. There's a lot of censorship issues to do with content, and we have to be very careful about that. But interestingly, in China, it's not just the biggest film market, it's the biggest micro tipping market as well. It's the biggest market for tipping. It's the way that a lot of platforms operate in China. So if you look at Europe, a lot of platforms operate based on an ad model, Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn. A lot of it is by and Google, right? A lot of it is ad based. In China, it's kind of the opposite. A lot of it is based on peer-led micro tipping. So people can watch someone in their room play the violin, and there's platforms out there that will enable people to tip that, and people earn lots of money per month based on tipping. So it's the biggest market for this model, and we actually took inspiration from China when we launched Paus and the tipping model, because it was the first place where tipping started to take off. So it's big for both reasons. India is still a very big market, but for content with adverts, because you know the consumers typically don't like to pay for content there.
So Bollywood videos and films, would they make it to your your stream, to your platform, or not quite yet?
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple already from filmmakers in India who've put their films. One example is Tungras, which is a really great documentary, won awards. I think it was Oscar qualifying as well. And it's on our service. But you know, we are yet to explore whether a model like this, the content absolutely, but whether a model like this would work in India, because it's a huge market for adverts, mainly because charging people for content doesn't typically stick well there. People don't like to pay a lot for content. They'd rather watch adverts and have it monetized that way. Whereas across other parts of Europe, we actually have platforms that say pay X amount of money to avoid watching adverts, the freemium model. So Spotify and YouTube, you know, people want to pay so they don't have to watch adverts anymore.
Definitely. How do you have any kind of vague idea what your demographic is? I mean, do you target a certain age group, or do you feel that, because I know obviously 10 years ago, 5 years ago, most stream platforms would be used by younger people, but now my parents said they use everything. They use Netflix. My dad's always streaming. So are you targeting like 20 to 40-year-olds, or is it just everyone, or do you have different marketing strategies for different age groups?
So our biggest age group tends to skew towards 18 to 35, which still is a considerable demographic, but it tends to skew there. And then there's a sort of top end of 40, 45 plus of a sort of more mature audience, but it tends to be in that 18 to 35 range. But really, for me, we base it on interest, as opposed to the traditional way of segmenting an audience is age and gender and socioeconomic profile. And what we do is we want to scrap all that and instead look at interest groups, because you can be a dentist and be a passion for film.
Yeah.
Be a film lover. You can be a school teacher and be a film lover. And, you know, we started off by the usual demographic profiling of audiences to target, and then we thought, I know, let's base it on interest groups. So who is actually interested in film? Who is interested in storytelling? Let's target those people regardless of age or background. And the good thing with our model is that it's financially inclusive. So whether you can only afford to tip 30p or you want to tip £300, it's financially inclusive. We don't leave anyone out of the financial system. And so because of that, we don't have to then only target people of a certain wealth or demographic who are going to pay $10.99 for a streaming service, because then that leaves a whole load of people out.
So I guess cinephiles can be found in anywhere. So it could be young, old, or you know, rich or poor. You should be able to enjoy a film, regardless of what realm of life you're from. Actually, and talking about video on demand, about you looking into the UK market, we know that I'm going to play a little game with you guys, actually.
Oh,
so
nice.
In the last year, who do you think are the top 5 platforms that perform well in UK for video on demand? So I'll even give
Netflix
you.
is an easy one. I mean,
Okay.
I'm getting that one, so I just get one mark.
Is that okay? Is that okay? Netflix. Who else do you think is in?
So I believe this is what I've read. I could be completely wrong, but I believe the top 4 is Netflix, Amazon, Sky, then Mubi are the top. I don't know what the top 5 are, but I've read that the top 4
by monthly subscribers. Maybe I should put that little caveat there. So
Amazon and Netflix, definitely.
okay, Netflix is in there. Yes.
How about BBC iPlayer?
That's a good one. Yes.
How
BBC.
about ITV iPlayer?
ITV is
ITV Hub.
That's it. Yes.
I don't watch it.
Industry expert.
Yeah.
He knows it.
Yeah, he knows all of them.
Yes, and then one more, and then 2 more.
I mean, I guess it's got to be 4. Was it 4 OD, 4 on demand?
All 4.
All 4?
All 4. Yeah.
Yes.
Is that one?
That's one, and then last one.
Yeah, BritBox.
Nope.
Oh no, BritBox doesn't do well in the UK.
No, that's
Hulu's America.
Disney.
No, Disney is just new. Yes.
It's too new. It's too new.
You guys are missing a very obvious one.
Sky.
No. So the one that you guys got to say. No.
Oh, sorry, I'm just gonna shut up.
You're so excited. Calm down.
I get excited.
I'm next
It's
to
a
you.
subscription model. It's a subscription model.
Yes.
Right?
So
You don't need to tell me.
Do you want me to tell you? I'll give.
No, I don't. We could be here for a while. I'm going to apologize to your listeners right now because we're going to be here for a while.
All right. So it's actually Amazon. You guys missed Amazon.
No, we said Amazon.
He's at Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
Did you?
Netflix, Amazon, and then we went to BBC,
BBC, ITV, and then all four. Okay, good job.
We got that. Yeah.
Good job. So number one is actually BBC iPlayer. Number two, with approximately 12 million subscribers every month. Netflix with 10, then ITV Hub with 8.5, Amazon with 8, and all four with 6, just over 6.
Yeah, I don't know anyone with
So,
all four. So
well, clearly you need to know more like older people because who watches TV?
that's
like,
true. Actually,
all,
that's a good point.
yeah. Where's Coronation Street? Is that on? That's on BBC.
ITV.
Yeah. Do you know everything about TV channels? What's on everything?
That's why we asked him on the show to be an expert.
He's like, yeah, we did lots of research before I started watching TV.
Yeah. So, so hopefully, you might be able to hit not necessarily the numbers of subscribers, but at least those are the kind of audience that exists out there that are ready to watch films or TV on a regular basis.
I think also now, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but being in lockdown, obviously content consumption has gone up massively.
Yeah.
And I suppose people are getting bored quicker as well and wanting to watch something new and different. And I suppose having an offering out there that's completely free is probably, we're in a good place. People ask me quite a lot, how are you coping, with lockdown? And purely selfishly, even though it's a horrible thing that's going on, it's kind of okay for a streaming service because people are looking for content like this. So we are definitely set to grow within this. When unlike being in, I don't know, aviation or something, which is you're really struggling. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting time for us.
Yeah. So I guess the common term is right now in lockdown is, I completed Netflix, so I need to, get onto Amazon. So with Amazon, they have like 22,000 hours worth of content, and Netflix has about 32,000 hours of content in the UK market, I should say. So their library is quite vast. So if you're able to get through 32,000 hours,
yeah, but a lot of it is not stuff you want to watch, though.
Then you can't say I completed Netflix. Then you say I've kind of made a dent in Netflix.
I've got a question because Hollywood's kind of not fully on lockdown, but a lot of my people who might know who are in acting, they say there's not much going on because of social distancing, and a lot of film productions have been shut down. Is that good for you? And does that affect? Do you think that would affect Hollywood more than the independent film market? And the longer this lockdown goes on, does that mean fewer films are going to be produced, and we're going to start running out of films and everything's going to be drying up? And then will this also be good for the independent film market because they have smaller budgets and smaller casts, and they can probably get away with making film rather than having 20 block Hollywood actors and
adhering to social distancing at the same time too.
I mean, if it's just two people making a video and they're making
a guy made a
guitar, so you can make all the movies you want. So do you think?
I think that big studios and streamers will no doubt be able to ride the wave in a much more financially stable way because they've got loads of money. So they're never going to struggle in that sense. And they can throw money at having tighter restrictions, even though it's going to be more difficult because you have a crew of 1,000 people. Keeping them all socially distanced is going to be tough. I actually think it's a good time for independent film because there's going to be a lot of reliance on archived content. We've seen that already. There's a lot of reliance from streamers to go into archive content, and independent film is going to be no different. But also, independent filmmakers they're hustlers, right? They're all hustlers, and they've had to hustle because they've not been given the money that they need to make their film. They always have to pull in favors from people. They really have to hack their way to making a film, and this is just utilizing that skill to a whole different level. But they're not going to stop. We put in a competition called Lockdown Liberation, trying to get filmmakers to make a film during lockdown. And we had so many submissions of so many great films that people had made during lockdown. It was surprising how innovative independent filmmakers can make. So, it's tougher for them, but they've always had it tough, and they're innovators. And so I have every faith that the independent film sector can thrive from a production point of view, and with our platform, thrive from a financial point of view as well.
Nice.
So thank you so much. You've been giving us so much great information. We are hoping you could give us a 60-second, Dami's going to time it, quick 60-second clip on how to get ahead in your industry for all the budding young Netflix potential owners and platform creators, streaming platform creators. So 60 seconds, any words of inspiration you could provide.
Resilience is probably the most important thing that you can have as an entrepreneur. And there's a lot of rhetoric out there that kind of acts like a virus in the entrepreneurship world, which is, as a sole founder, you can't do this, or you don't have technical abilities, so you can't do this, or you don't have enough money, or you don't have the right education. And there's certain pigeonholes that entrepreneurs are put into, and that can make people feel as though they don't have the fighting chance. And I was put into all those different categories. A sole founder, didn't have the money myself up front, didn't have technical expertise to launch a streaming service. And so it just takes a little bit of time. But really the person or the people who win in the end is not the people who are lucky. And I don't like the use of luck, because it makes me feel as though some people are meant to have certain success and others aren't. It's the person who stays standing for the longest time. So be willing to die on the treadmill and keep running.
You'd be willing to die on the treadmill and keep running.
Isn't that's what Will Smith said? It's
that's
like
the Will Smith thing.
Yeah. That's a good man to quote.
Just be willing to die on the treadmill. It's like the difference between me and the next guy is that I'll be willing to die on the treadmill.
Exactly. One of us is going to get off first, and it ain't going to be me.
Yeah.
I remember.
And that's it. It's just like hard. It's just hardcore. It's hardcore work ethic, and it's not luck. I don't think. I think luck is just circumstantial, and you can create your circumstances just through continue. I mean, I started this journey years ago, and I'm sure loads of people would have given up by now. And now, look at us. We're on a 250k raise, and obviously for many startups that's kind of like pennies, right? But for a UK startup, with the traction that we have and the team that we have, it's fantastic. And what we're doing is a really noble mission. I would for my younger self, I would definitely just, you keep going. Sometimes you got no other choice but to just keep going, and eventually it will happen.
True. So I guess on the closing remarks then is, Rishi, thank you very much for coming in. We really appreciate it. You gave us a lot of good insights. How would we be able to get some of our users or our listeners to get in touch with you or your business? What are your social handles? And then also, we know that you do crowdfunding right now. Tell us what the goal is. Tell us where you're at, and
Dami's already invested. I will be investing after this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, you said to me before the podcast, before it went live, I'm going to say it now so all your audiences can hear that you said that you were going to fill up the rest of the round. So we need to get to 250k. We're 98% funded, and you're going to give us the other 2%. Yes. So thank you so much for offering that.
Guys, because it's such a good opportunity, I don't want to take all of it. So I will take slightly less than 2%.
Don't you drive a Mercedes? I thought
just put that on the market.
Mercedes, come on.
He's got the money.
Take the limit.
Is this the real goal?
Only 2%. Only 2%. No. Tell us where people can.
So our website, we kept our name super simple. It's 4 letters, PAUS. So type in pause.tv, PAUS.tv. Our Instagram handle is the exact same, PAUS.tv, pause.tv. Twitter's pause_.tv. And if you want to take part in our crowdfund, it's crowdcube/pause. And as I say, we are close to getting 100%, even closer, thanks to you guys. And if you want to download the app, just head to the iTunes store, type in Pause, and download it. It's free. Watch as many films as you like, but I would ask you to put your hand in your pocket and reward filmmakers directly if you like what you see, because 80% of every single tip goes back to the filmmakers, and we're democratizing film for good. That's where you can find out more about us.
Love it. Fantastic. Great. Thank you very much, Rishi. Really appreciate it. Go see your baby girl and tell her Uncle Dami says it's all right. Watch a film. Everything be okay.
And I will pause TV and chill tonight. That's what I'll do.
Nice. Love it.
Hashtag pause TV and chill, guys. Have a great night.
All right. Thanks a lot.
See you later. Bye.
Bye. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our talks. And we will talk to you next week. One love.
Peace.